Hi all, I thought we could get back onto the Evolution of Chess Style series and look at the next interesting decisive game of the Botvinnik Bronstein match, so played in 1951. d4 from Botvinnik, Bronstein played knight f6, c4 e6, knight c3, we have the Nimzo engine, e3, b6, and this seems to allow white to avoid having doubled pawns in this position, but there's another point of b6, bishop a6, and apparently this was dreamt up by Bronstein on the morning of this game. So it's looking at c4. Okay, is there any point to that? Well, after a3, black is not obliged to take on c3. The bishop drops back. Knight g3, and the point is revealed here really. d5. Yeah, trying to stop white's castling rights, or at least make white use more time with this knight here. White played c takes after bishop takes. Knight takes. Yeah, black's causing this knight to lose a lot of tempo just to castle. Knight g3, queen d7, which looks at f5, keeping hold of d5, queen f3, and here we see knight c6. You might think knight f5 is annoying here. I'm not sure it's that annoying in this position. Let's have a quick check. Maybe black just castles, doesn't worry about it. I think losing this bishop isn't necessarily the end of the world. This bishop's a bit blocked in at the moment. So, but it did become a concern in this position. Black, or did it? It seems as though this is about f5 control, but it also does support h5, h4, kicking this knight again. Bishop d2, black castles. Knight ce2, trying to put maybe more pressure on d5 later, and also double rooks in some way. In fact, the f rook is used there, and yeah, we see this h5 driving the knight. Now, is this creating some weaknesses on light squares? This seems pretty ambitious, but one consequence with the knight driven away from e4 is a knight can be planted here on e4. Pretty annoying, tying white down a bit. Knight f4, and now a5, kind of discouraging b4 from white. White prepares double rooks. Black provides c7 support now to be able to move his knight without dropping c7. Bishop e1 is played for a moment. Knight e7. White doesn't even bother actually doubling rooks now. He plays queen e2. Knight d6. Yes, the knight going back. Because there is a slight issue with this pawn. After queen e2, f3 is on the cards, trying to nick this pawn. Now here, after f3, g5. Yeah, and black is creating some light square weaknesses. The knight goes back to d3, queen e6, a4. We see knight g6, h3, f5. So there is a bit of a bind on e4. So Botvinnik's play seems quite justified, even though he's moved a lot of pawns over here quite aggressively. Has he left a vacuum that can be exploited? It doesn't really seem that way. He's got a nice control over the position. In fact, trebles on that e file and pushes forward with now f4. Botvinnik played knight e5 here. That's taken, but here, yeah, can white? Can black actually take on e5, or is there a punishment? I believe going into a self pin generally is not a good idea, but let's have a look at the details here. On knight takes e5, e takes. You might think knight takes f3 is possible. But let's follow this. G takes, queen takes d5 check is the snag, and look at that bishop there. So it's like Botvinnik has set a trap here. This position, it looks as though white's getting a lot of play and compensation here. might be slightly better for white anyway, believe it or not, overall. But yeah, so this continuation with e takes f4 is interesting, but there's also just this move. And if here e takes, if black is forced to do this, then again we have queen takes d5 check, and this should be about equal apparently to rook takes b2. Yeah, okay, so anyway, knight f7 was played, ignoring all that stuff. E takes, knight h2, and now it looks as though white is tapping in finally to these light square weaknesses, but c5 does promise to, you know, block the bishop. Knight g4, d4. Now here white should play perhaps bishop c1, trying to eliminate this knight. As an example, queen here takes, and this move, and it should be okay. So eliminating that bishop, and white has a nice blockade. It should be equal. But believe it or not, white played in this position knight f6 check, and you may see a flaw to this move. If I give you 5 seconds to pause the video, what did David Bronstein play here? Okay, queen takes f6. Yeah, this pins e1 pin. Yeah, I mean, if Mikhail Botvinnik can crack like this and not see this tactic, yeah, it shows we're all pretty frail. I mean, I've got to say, the evolution of chess style. Let me tell you a few things on restarting the series. My other thoughts now is really, I believe our evolution is based on our database of game examples. It wasn't just the hypermoderns which were looking at the exceptions. We're doing it all the time. As we evolve our database historically, we see more and more examples of how we can play positions and what we can get away with. And so we're always finding new exceptions to the rules. It's our database, our shared database of knowledge, which anyone can tap into and analyze the games of the past. And we stand head and shoulders. We stand on the heads and shoulders of our predecessors. So parts of the database might have political influences. I just want to say that as well. This match, it seems as though David Bronstein, there were some factors, personal factors, which might have influenced his play, and he didn't necessarily want to win the match. It seems on the evidence of this game that Mikhail Botvinnik wasn't the greatest tactician in the history of chess. Not missing, you know, this queen takes f6. Okay, it was approaching move 40, but I think we've also, when we look at our historical database of games, we've got to be cynical at certain sections of it. And for me, this is a cynical kind of section, actually, this match. And really, I only want to cover maybe at most 1 or 2 extra games from this match and move on and look at interesting games after that. I would also like to say, when we look at our shared historical, you know, database of game examples, yeah, I think we should do so with joy. We should find the joyful game examples to teach the new generations. And from that point of view, I'm revisiting Morphy elsewhere on the King's Crusher channel with much greater, keener interest, even in his odds games where he gave odds and everything. Because I think you don't want to go past the most interesting games, or because what you think is more authoritative, like this match, when maybe it isn't. Maybe it's politically distorted. So you've got to be cynical about our historical database of games, but that is what drives evolution. The opening knowledge is very, very specific, which those games represent. Now here there was a novelty at the time, bishop a6, which is now, if you look in line, but this is the second most popular move. So if the story is true that Bronstein dreamt this up, then he's one of the innovators in the Nimzo engine. This is one of the most popular moves now, bishop a6 in this position. The most popular is c5, but bishop a6 is very, very popular. So yeah, from an opening perspective, at the very least, the database represents something. But the ideas, the strategic, the tactical, you know, ideas of the games. But this was a blunder in the end, which decided an unfortunate blunder. And it seems, yeah, I mean, it seems as though black in a way had achieved the mission blocking the bishop. But if the bishop can just play bishop c1, and it's difficult for black to sort of get an advantage here, it seems, technically anyway. So okay, so that's where we are in the evolution of chess style. I think just try and enjoy our database of games. It's that which provides the concrete framework for our experimentation and extending our evolution. And of course we have, you know, the computer analysis now we can do, etc. So we're in a much better position to analyze the games of the past than ever before. Okay, comments, questions, likes, shares, appreciated. Thanks so much.